welcome to this episode of What's Happening in Wapaca. I am Joni. Today we are talking with Darla Ray from Foundations of Living. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been on your show.
I don't think you have. We've had Foundations for Living on many times, so it's nice to see a new and welcoming face. So, and you and I know each other,
Yes, we do.
This is going to be kind of fun.
We'll try to behave, right?
Now, no. So, you know, Foundations for Living has so many things going on, and there's a couple of things that I want to talk about in particular.
Okay.
But we're going to start talking about some of the things that you've got going on. Now, we're into winter, and it's a little bit cold, so your warming shelter is open, right? And
The warming center opened on the 1st of November.
okay, so you've got somewhere if someone just doesn't have anywhere to stay, you've got, and it's a nice warming shelter. It's right next to the store, which I go to from time to time.
Awesome.
I know, you got to shop.
Good stuff there.
Yes, yeah, I've walked out with lots of stuff. So
Me too.
it's also a nice way to support Foundations for Living.
Yes.
You can go in there, and I'm really huge on reuse, renew, recycle, so that allows me to do that, allows me to support your organization. But you do have the warming shelter. What else do you have going on that's the ongoing programs?
Well, for the clothes closet, we say shop, save, support.
Okay,
So if you shop there, you save money and you support our programs. Which is
Perfect.
perfect. The other programs that we have going, we have a spot, which is supporting parents of teens and tweens.
and we're going to talk about that in a
Okay.
little bit, and we're going to talk about changes.
Okay.
Ongoing, you have the recovery.
We have Recovery Coach Weekend, which is a support group that meets on Saturdays. Our Recovery Coach, Teresa Williams, is the one that heads that up, and it's kind of ties in with if you have an interest in art. They do some art projects together, and I mean, it's really a really cool support group for people that are dealing with all kinds of addiction issues. It doesn't have to be alcohol and drugs. It can be, if you feel that you need to go get support because you have addiction to sugar or food or whatever, come on in, and it's a really neat group.
So you guys are, Foundations for Living has become a holistic kind of, if you're having troubles in your personal life, and if you can't figure out how to cope with it, and many of us, especially when we're in the middle of it, and this is something that I think is important to tell people, if we are in the middle of a very, very difficult time, the last thing that we should be expecting ourselves to know is how to get out of it. Right?
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
some basics, but
Basics.
but we're so enmeshed in
Right.
what's going on that it's very difficult to see clearly.
Yeah, you freeze, you flee, or you fight.
Exactly.
You do one of the three things, and a lot of people just freeze.
Exactly.
Because they don't know what to do.
Yep. So if we think about Foundations for Living, even I used to think about drugs and alcohol. So it's nice to hear that you've kind of become more holistic about it, because there are addictions to food, there are addictions to sugar.
Well, what we discovered when we
You
started
know?
doing the warming center was that there are reasons why people are in the situations they're in, and why are we catching them at the bottom of the cliff, and why aren't we putting a barrier at the top? So let's start doing programs that will help people before they become homeless.
And that's a great lead-in to the things that we're going to talk about
Okay.
today. You have started Spot, which is support parents of tweens and teens.
Right.
Now, I don't know how many of us have tweens and teens, but a lot of us do, and a lot of us are aware of all of the challenges that are going on in the schools. And a lot of these challenges with, I mean, I hear about drugs in elementary schools. So kids are coming home, they're having a hard enough time dealing with the growing up with the hormones. I mean, that's all a kid can deal with.
That's its own bag.
But then they're coming home with all of these pressures to be something that is often what parents don't want. I mean, parents want kids to grow up and be wholesome and responsible and get good grades, and we're getting a lot of pressure to do things other than that. So how does Spot help me with my teenager that I don't understand?
Well, what's happening with our teenagers and our teenagers is that information has now become almost instant.
Very much.
So every 15 minutes, you're getting new information that when I was growing up, 2 weeks I would find out about a hurricane that happened in,
Right.
So now
Right.
information is right now. So the world has become smaller, and because the world has become smaller, everybody knows the tragedies that happen right away. So it becomes really tense for kids because when I was growing up, my biggest fear was that, Russia was going to bomb us, Okay, and now, because the world has gotten so much smaller, the stress becomes higher because you know more about what's going on in the world. And as a teenager, that's unbelievably overwhelming.
Is it really? I mean, I turn on my computer and there's all of these things that I don't care if I'm on Facebook or if I'm on one of the news channels, you're going to hear about everything that's going on. And I look at it, but I look at it from an adult point of view, and so I feel the tragedy or I see some of what's going on. Why is it affecting young people so much to see instantaneously? I mean, I get the violence, I get the shooting, I get that kind of stuff, but tragedies like hurricanes and tornadoes and people losing houses, why does that affect our young people so much?
Because we were growing up, we didn't hear about all of those tragedies that people faced.
Right.
We just didn't hear about it, but now they know about it right away. They know that if they are in a meeting place, somebody could open fire.
Right.
Somebody could shoot you while you're at the park. Before that had happened, but it wasn't as well known, or it wasn't as instant.
Right.
And it just becomes more stressful because they don't know how to, with their teenage minds, they don't know where to put it.
Okay. So
Because you're looking at a developing mind, because
Right.
right now they think adolescent goes up to 27. Adolescence instead of...
Is it only 27? I thought it was 36.
Well, it could be, but no.
I evidently grew up slow. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just the changing of times and all of that. Computers have changed the way that kids interact with other people, because no longer do I have to confront anyone. I don't have to come up to somebody that said something mean or bad or awful about me. I don't have to confront them face to face. All I have to do is write a text.
Well, you can be a whole lot meaner.
Yeah,
in a
and
text.
when you don't have to face them.
Exactly.
So, and that's the other part of it.
Exactly. So it's the communication, but it's also the thought processes behind trying to deal with everything that's going on.
When I was in school, teenagers were mean enough. High schoolers were mean enough to each other. Now they don't even have to face each other, and they can be mean to each other.
Are they getting meaner?
I think so.
You think so?
And that's not any derogatory towards kids, because it's tough. Growing up with heroin and all of that stuff, with parents that are divorcing, and with all of those things that add stress on your life, growing up is tough. It really is.
Growing up was tough when I was growing up just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's a really tough thing. Your body is changing. You've got raging hormones,
Right.
and and I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about your entire body is
everything
changing by the
changes.
day.
And back in the 50s, when families were staying together, your body was changing, but your family was staying the same.
So you
And
had
now
the
kids' bodies are
stability-
changing, and their families are splitting apart. That part is changing too.
Interesting.
Everything starts to change, and there's
That's
nothing that's...
interesting. So Spot is going to help me because this is for parents and grandparents.
This is for parents and grandparents that they just want to sit down and talk and find out if other people are dealing with the same issues that they are. A place that's safe. They can sit down and say, this is what my kid is doing, and I don't know. I've tried everything that I can. Does anybody have any ideas of what I can do? Or this is the great things that my kids have done. and I want to be able to celebrate that. You have any ideas how we can celebrate the good things? And I mean, it's not just about the bad things.
Well,
It's celebrating the good things and trying to figure out the bad things.
and about understanding.
And understanding.
You know, because it's tough to understand kids, because I'm through that. So I think as adults, we tend to forget how painful, you know, I'll tell you what I remember. I remember that I didn't feel good from the time I was 13 until I was about 20. And because it's just a very difficult time
Right.
in your life to get through.
And I worked with kids for years, and I always tell them, if you can get through high school, that which makes you odd in high school, when you get into college, is going to make you popular. So just get through high school, and you will find out that that uniqueness about you is what makes you stand out in the crowd.
But that's pretty tough, because
That
high
is tough.
school is 3 or 4 years,
Yeah,
and that's forever
that's hard.
to a young
Yeah,
one.
it is.
That is going to lead us right into this next one that I want to head on, and that is you have a program called Changes, which is learning your mind. And this focuses on how do you think, why do you think that way, and how do you change it,
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
So tell me why did Foundations for Living start this program?
Well, we started when way back in the dark ages. No, when we first opened up, we had a class that was called Life Skills.
Yes.
And Life Skills was very expensive, and we wanted to be able to bring a class to people that wasn't quite so expensive, that would enable people to be able to figure out why they do the things they do, and not have it be this huge gouge out of their pocketbook. And
Sure.
B, you know, at the time, I think Life Skills was 32 weeks long. That's a long time to sit in a class.
Yeah.
So we kind of took the class, our former executive director and one of the other Life Skills teachers, facilitators, shortened it up and put their own spin in it. I don't want to say spin, because they put their own influences into
Right.
it, and started a class that was called Heartbeats.
I remember.
Okay, and then we kind of looked at it again, because we went through big administrative change and everything. We looked at it again and we went, Heartbeats doesn't really tell us what that's about. But Changes, because we want to make changes in our lives, really tells us that this is what the class is about. It's about looking at your mind and how do I make the changes? Why do I do the things I do? And then how do I remap my brain so that I can figure out what my triggers are? And then when that trigger happens, I can go, oh, there's a trigger for anger, so I'm going to manage my emotions. It's not changing your emotions or negating them. It's managing them. How do I manage that emotion and have a different response? So if you go from 0 to angry in 3.6 seconds, okay, there's something physiological that happens to your body, because anger, secondary emotion. You're embarrassed, you're hurt, you're struggling, you're whatever, then you become angry. So there's a physiological change that happens before you get angry. There's a trigger that happens in your body, like my ears get red, my neck gets hot, I get butterflies in my stomach, I get an eye twitch, whatever that trigger is. We look to identify what those triggers are, so that you go, oh, that's what's coming. I can make a different choice now.
And you have to understand, you know, you have to understand what's happening with you in order to be able to change,
To recognize it.
your reaction. Exactly, because we react very, very quickly, and I think that ties into the speed of the world, you know, as well. So, yeah.
It's also looking at life lessons or life commands. A simple life command that every boy in the world has heard is boys don't cry. Okay, so you grow up suppressing that. Men will grow up suppressing that. I'm not going to cry because boys don't cry. Okay, Changes gives you an opportunity to look at why that was said, and look at it as an adult now instead of a little boy, and go, you know what, I can have emotions. It's okay for me to do that, and then remap your brain and be able to have emotions. There's so much that go into this Changes, but it's so
So this is for adults.
For adults, we're looking at trying to make it for teenagers too.
And that's the one thing I want to highlight about this is that once we start looking at ourselves and just understanding, it's not about looking in the mirror and saying, you go from 0 to angry in
Right.
3.6 seconds. It's about, I get it now. And that gives you the empowerment to start to change. And that's when you'll see that kind of influence with your kids or with the rest of your family as well.
A prime example, and we had one of the first classes that I facilitated, we had a young man that was in the class that by the end of the class he said, normally when my friends say, let's go out and party, I think about it. And I go, okay. And now I think about it and go, there's other things I can do. So he had started to remap that process in his brain. And that's what we're looking for, is being able to change. That subtle, I can make things different in my life. And I don't have to just go down there.
Yep, and we can continue growing as adults. Darla Ray, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking with you. Interesting stuff going on. Check out the website. You'll learn all kinds of stuff and about all of the different programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us for this episode of What's Happening in Wapaca. I'm Joni, and I'll see you next time.